It's so interesting. I always joke that I'm a Gemini because you have so many different personalities and interests. I grew up in Logan, Utah, which is in northern Utah. A beautiful city right in the middle of the Rocky Mountains, so there were mountains everywhere and lots of nature, and I always loved being outside and doing things outside. Growing up, I spent a lot of time studying music, and my parents are musicians. My grandfather's a painter, and I spent a lot of time in his studio. So this is from my wedding, and this is my grandfather, Harrison Groudage, who was a painter and just a really prolific artist and huge influence. So I feel like that early environment just really influenced and shaped the rest of my life, having those influences around. So when I started college, that's what I decided I wanted to study, was painting and illustration. And my husband, who was my boyfriend then, was also going to school there and studying jazz guitar. We would play music together, and I would make him model for my drawings, and you know, he was very patient with me. I think it's been so important to have a partner. We really help balance each other out, and if one person started doubting the path they'd chosen, the other person was just so supportive. I remember one time right after graduate school, I got accepted to do an artist residency at the Vermont Studio Center, and it was a fully funded residency, so all I had to be responsible for was getting myself up there and my work up there, and it was prestigious, and it was, you know, going to be a really good step for my career at that point. But we had just, you know, we were students. I had just graduated. We basically were just, Jackson was teaching some guitar lessons. We were playing gigs, and we were doing okay, but it was very month to month, you know, as far as finances. And I got the letter, and I remembered reading it and thinking, I can't leave for a month. Like, there's no way I can afford to not work for a month. And I got so stressed out, and I told Jackson, I was like, I wish I could do this, but I guess I can't. And he was like, you're crazy. He's like, go. He's like, we'll figure it out. This is amazing, and this is an opportunity you need to take. And I was like, but what are we gonna do? He's like, just we'll figure it out. I remember at one point while I was up at the residency, he actually ended up selling one of his guitars to pay for rent that month, but it was okay like that. I've gotten so many opportunities from that, and you know, we recovered, and it was fine. You just have to kind of get creative sometimes. And then on the flip side, when I was dealing with the arm injury and I couldn't make a lot of work, right after graduate school, I was working really, really hard on the series of charcoal drawings that was physically pretty intense to work on. I had all these exhibits that I'd, you know, planned to do, and so I was working nonstop, maybe, you know, 10 hours a day in my studio, and I just developed a really, really bad tendon injury in my arms, and so it got to the point where I had to stop painting or drawing for about 1.5 years, and it was really hard. So, you know, it was a forced break, and I was kind of in a place where I needed a new experience and something really inspiring. I got the opportunity to do an artist residency at the China Academy of Art in Hangzhou, China, and it was going to be for a full year. I wanted to go so badly, and I thought it would be so cool. So I just signed the paperwork, I put it all in motion, and I got home and I was telling Jackson, I was like, we're gonna go to China, it's gonna be so cool. And he's like, we have a house, we have a dog, you know, I have my life here, like, I don't wanna go to China. And it was like, well, it's going to be really cool. I promise you can find gigs there. It's going to be such an experience. And he really didn't want to go, but he finally came around, and we got there, and it was so life-changing, and he met so many musician friends. extra year because we were playing jazz clubs, and they gave us an apartment, and and it was all fine. We left my dog at my parents' house, and we had a great time while we were gone, and we rented our house out. If you really feel strongly about making that decision or taking that risk, I think you can always make it work, and it just builds up those layers of making you a stronger artist and a stronger person, because I can't even imagine if we hadn't gone to China. And even while we were in China, we became really good friends with a bass player from Sweden. It was super interesting and really fun. And he ended up coming here for a tour, and he and my sister ended up getting married, and now they're living in Sweden. So if we had, every once in a while, she's like, thank you for finding me a gorgeous Swedish husband in China. Because when I came back to it, I was a better musician, and I had fresh ideas. As I got older, I realized that it's okay to focus more on one and then come back to it, and it just unfolds organically. If little girl Maggie could see me now, that she would be like, oh, okay, that's awesome. So right now, I'm a professor at the Savannah College of Art and Design, and I teach in the foundations department, so I teach drawing and design. But I do a lot of my own painting, and that's still kind of my first love. So no matter what else happens, I always need to be in my studio painting. I've received a number of placement awards at different juried exhibits in museums and different places, all over the country. I didn't mean to be a full-time musician as well, but it just sort of kept snowballing, and I kept getting gigs and kept working on my bass playing and my singing. So I also perform regularly, and that's become a second career, even though I didn't really intend for it to be a second career. Besides that, I just have discovered a love for cycling, and so that's kind of a hobby that I've been very passionate about for the last few years. So, I am a professor now, but for many years I was just, relying on gigs and making money that way, and my teaching job is very flexible. So it still is, it's a lot of things that I bounce around between. And I think I remember my dad saying specifically, like, don't rely on gigs for money. You can't rely on gigs. And for maybe 10 years, we did rely on gigs, and I kept thinking, like, oh no, this is such a bad idea. My grandma still, when I talk to her on the phone, she's like, now, she calls me Mary Margaret, because that's my full name. And she's like, now, Mary Margaret, are you gonna be an artist, or are you gonna be a musician? Like, she still can't. I'm like, Grandma, I'm doing it. I'm doing both. It's like, you don't have to worry about me anymore. But she still just can't wrap her head around it. It's kind of funny because I try to picture myself playing gigs in 20 or 30 years when I'm 60 or 70, like an older woman, walking up with my bass, and I'm like, man, I don't know, that sounds kind of weird. And then I'm like, well, why not? If it feels natural, I'll do it. And everyone will be like, who's that cool old lady on the bass?
Thank you very, very much. That's Maggie Evans on the bass and vocals, Jody Espina on the saxophones. My name is Jackson Evans. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with another set for you. Thanks for coming out to the Land Show.